They don't buy what the product does. They buy what the product does for them.
Welcome to Sales Secrets with Brandon Bornancin. On the daily, Brandon shares new secrets to help maximize sales and make more money today. Never miss a show by hitting the subscribe button now.
They don't buy what the product does. They buy what the product does for them. And it's not the functionality, it's the side effects.
What do you mean?
Well, people don't buy a Porsche for acceleration. People buy a Porsche for how it makes them feel and their social status.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what the acceleration is. I've never drag raced anybody in 30 years. But I sure like how it feels when I'm in it, right? And people
I take it you
crane their
Porsche?
necks. No, I'm joking. I wish I had a Porsche. That's why I look at Porsches. I don't look at them because of, rack and pinion steering, whatever the hell that is. I don't know what that is.
That's awesome.
This show is sponsored by seamless.ai, the world's best sales leads. Get direct dials, emails, and cell phones for anyone in seconds. Request an invite to join for free at seamless.ai. That's seamless.ai.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I'm thrilled to have with me today, Brian Burns. Brian is the host of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast, which is one of the most downloaded sales podcasts on iTunes and YouTube. He is also the host of the B2B Revenue Leadership Show, a top business podcast, the Sales Leadership Show, the Career Advice Podcast, Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers. What hasn't Brian done? He's got over 20 years of selling experience. He's also the author of 4 books on B2B sales. He's worked as the VP Sales, Public Sector, and New Markets for IBM for nearly a decade. He is a sales expert. Brian, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Brandon. Great to be here.
So, why don't you, I know I gave a little ramble about your background, but real quick, what are the places that you've sold? What were the ticket price of those deals and the sales length?
Yeah. So in my B2B space, I sold software mostly, as well as network appliances that were basically 95% software. They were all mid-market to enterprise, minimum deal, probably $75K. Large deal would be 7 figures. Did that for about 12 startups. So I was always like that first guy in. And when people hear IBM, they think, oh, big company guy. Well, I got there through an acquisition. It wasn't voluntary.
Awesome. And why the startup route? Like, where are you based out of right now for the audience?
I have a house on both coasts, Palo Alto and Bethesda, Maryland. Awesome. So I basically grew up in Boston, and companies want you to move. So you move around quite a bit. And startups, because I hate bureaucracy. I like working by myself or with a small team. I don't like a lot of meetings. I don't like a lot of admin. I like closing deals.
That's awesome. That's great. And any startups that you think the audience would know about, or out of the 12?
Yeah, there's a couple famous ones. Rational Software. I started there when it was $6 million. And they sold to IBM for $3 billion. I was number 1 rep there 2 years in a row. I sold the first copy of Rational Rose. So it was tiny,
That's
there.
Wild. Were you there for the whole journey?
No, I was there 4 years. They were a hardware company when I showed up. That's how old it was. Wow. And we just blew it out. My biggest year, I did 6 million when the company did 10 million. So it was a lot of fun.
60% of their revenue.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, going into this, right? So you've sold 75K deals to multiple 7 figures, 12 different startups, Palo Alto to the East Coast. Let's just dive into it, man. What would you say? I'm going to ask you, I want to hear about your top sales secret. And then I also want to hear about your top content secret, because you're a content machine as well. So let's go into, if you had to start back all over again, lose everything and start back, in 20 something in B2B sales, SaaS sales, you name it. What is your top sales secret?
Well, I think people waste their time trying to find the top secret. The top secret is that sales is a performance profession. It's not a knowledge profession. Okay. You could read every book on sales. You could watch every video, listen to every podcast, but you still have to do it. And you have to practice it and become better every day. And this is the part that people struggle with. Everyone wants to deny it or fight it. But when you adapt it, when you accept it, when you look at every day, every action that you take and ask yourself, how can I get better? That's the secret. Because unlike being an accountant, you're either right or wrong when you're an accountant. You either get audited or you don't.
Yep.
But like if you're a lawyer, that's a performance. Either the person gets off or they go to jail. Right. We either close a deal or we lose a deal.
100%. So, okay. So if there's no secret and it's a profession, right? And you got to keep improving and perform, I guess. What's the secret to keep improving and performing and mastering that?
The first one is admit you're not perfect, which is really hard to face because every time you lose a deal, the rationalization machine comes out. Oh, they bought from their cousin. Our price is too high. We don't have this feature. And I hear it from reps all the time. I'm too young. I'm too old. I'm too attractive. I'm too ugly. Whatever it is, there's always an excuse. And there's some truth to that. It's not like it's a complete lie, but it doesn't matter. You lost.
Deal's dead.
It's a performance profession, right? There's a million comedy writers, but there's only a handful of great comedians. It's not the joke. It's the delivery of the joke that matters. And people struggle with that because it requires reflection and judgment and admitting that you're not perfect and practice and accepting feedback.
And how did you master that sales secret throughout your career?
I don't think you ever master it. I think I hated wasting my time and I was hyper competitive. So I was lucky that I started my career where I was selling high dollar amounts. And there was probably 8 deals a year that I could win or lose. Mm-hmm. So any one of them was a huge percentage of my income.
Yeah.
And if I either lost it or it delayed or it got marginalized, that was enormously impactful for me.
Yeah, massive blow, right?
Yeah. So you either, you can blame anybody, but you don't get paid for that. You might feel better at the end of the day, but it's like eating a donut or a cookie. It gives you a little bit of energy, but you're still fat, right? You don't really improve. It gives you the instant response that you want. But in sales, you got to get better every day.
That's awesome. And okay, so you kind of let go of the ego, you take ownership and responsibility. What would be the next step to, going from 0 to millions in sales insanely fast? What would be the next secret?
There you have to understand the game you're playing, the whole game from start to finish. Too many people, every email I get is like, what's the best subject line? Well, it's like, okay, I don't know. Here's one that works for me. Here's a mod. And then if it doesn't work, they go, it didn't work. Well, it's up to us to figure it out. And we're playing the whole game. We're not just playing get the meeting game. We're not playing the demo game. We're not playing the proposal game. We got to play the whole game. And too many people just think, well, I've got my 17 KPIs and look at me, I'm rocking. Look at my dashboard. Boss loves me. But unless you close it, it doesn't matter.
Right. Either close or lose, really.
Yeah. And I very quickly just became a student of that game. And I was lucky. I had a great VP of sales who was at the office at night, away from home, and me and him would go to dinner. We'd talk through the deals.
Mm.
And he really showed me, because he had 30 years experience, you know, what could go wrong? What are our weak points? How do we cover our bases? What are they most likely going to say? And they had a really structured process after each meeting to do a postmortem, to tear the meeting apart. Who was in the room? Who has power? Who is grandstanding? How do you think this is going to play out? Who's our enemy? And that, when you start playing chess and give up on checkers, you start to win the game.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that postmortem on every deal. Huh? You guys would just phonetically analyze what went well, what could be improved, and whatnot.
Because, you know, it's one thing when you're high transaction and you can't do that, and you got inbound. But if it's small number of transactions, yeah, and it's outbound, you screw up one of them, and that lesson costs you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you can either learn from that or ignore it.
Yeah. That's amazing. And then, you know, so how would the audience start applying, learning, executing, you know, that type of secret?
Well, there you have to kind of map out, describe that game, go through each communication point, each action, reaction from the deals that you won and the deals that you lost. Really think through them. Too many people, oh, we got to do the presentation better. We got to do the demo better. But in the complex sale, that's not where you lose the deal. And this is, you know, because I did 13 kickoff meetings this year.
Wow.
The same problem, 13 companies.
What was the problem?
Here's the problem. Everyone has it, including me, is that they like you, they want you, they can afford you, but they can't get it done internally. Okay? Meaning that they get the proposal from you, and then they talk to their manager, and the manager goes, can we wait? Can we find someone cheaper? Can we push it off 6 months? That is the default. 100% of the companies have that problem today. And everybody says, well, bring more value. You know, you're talking to the wrong people, right? It's the kids going to the parents trying to decide where we're going on vacation.
Right. Yeah, you can give as much value as you want. You could give them.
The kids are convinced. The kids want to go to Disney World.
Yeah. Shit. Okay. So, yeah, how do we fix that massive problem that stalls all deals? Then?
You got to play the whole game. You're selling to the kids when the parents are the economic decision makers, and we got to get in front of them. We got to cause that event to happen.
Okay.
And we got to do it, you know, from, you know, prospect and use a product like yours all the way to you get the PO. Who does it touch? Who has influence, both administratively, politically, and economically? You know, too many people say, oh, it's a great deal. If you do it by the end of the month, here's 30 points off. And you're hoping that the kid can convince dad that it's a great deal. We got to do it now. But dad goes, I don't know what it is. I think we've lived without it. We can live without it another month. Why are we doing it now? But if that kid comes to you and says, you know, Disneyland now has Space Mountain, which would prepare us for astronautical training, and cryptocurrency investing, Dad, which would give us an ROI of 300%. Dad's like, what the hell you been? You have to prepare. They have to arm them with the things that they need.
Yeah. So basically, you know, I think you uncovered two things that, you know, we need your advice on. How do we get to the table with the DM if we're not at the table? And then how do we figure out what to showcase to the DM to get buy-in? So on the first one, you know, what are your recommendations? We're working a deal. You've got an influencer at a company, 10-person buying committee, and they love you, right? It's like the kids versus the parents. Like they love you, but it's just an influencer or a user. How are you going to use them how are you going to get to the DM or the budget holder?
Yeah. You don't wait. You know, you're going to have to talk to them sooner or later, and you don't let the kids pigeonhole you from the parents, right? Yeah. The kids are welcome to their opinion, but they can't buy anything, right? The sign off, I was a vice president at IBM. You know how much I could spend?
How much?
As much as my card would. I don't know what the limit was. You know, somebody put a $2,000 dinner on my card once. That was the approval process. But if I went out to buy software, I bet it wouldn't work. Meaning that you have to get so high in a company, and every time a deal gets close to seven figures, it goes to the board, not for approval, but for consensus. People talk to their neighbors. They talk to their friends. All these people have opinions about your deal. And you got to understand that this is what's going on. And we're counting on somebody who has never bought anything before to get the deal done. Just because they love our product, need our product, want our product. It's never money. You can tell if it's money before you even call them. You know, you think everybody who's selling to Apple isn't getting the budget objection? Oh, we have no money. Only that 200 billion in the bank you see online.
Right.
We can't touch that though.
It's too much.
Too much.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't even have a budget for anything.
Right.
Like, I'm the CEO. I run the company. It's all my money in the company as well as our investors. It's all about, does this help us make money or save money? And then we'll buy it if it does one of those things. Right. Like, I don't have a budget. My CFO kept asking me for a budget. I'm like, I don't even understand what a budget means, because if it makes us money, we'll do it. If it saves us money, we'll do it. If it doesn't do one of those two things, we won't touch it. Right.
And I'm sure you get a lot of requests through the month, and most of them, you have no idea what they are. Right. This tool, this service, that service, upgrade this, upgrade that. And you're like, and some of it's based off of trust. Some of it's based off prioritization. But the person who comes to you with the best case that's written down, that they did the due diligence, that they compared all the alternatives, and they gave you an impact of not doing it. Right? What does the president want when the military comes to them? Do you think he goes down and talks to all the soldiers? He goes, no, give me three alternatives and tell me the implications of all of them. And then he picks one.
Yeah, I love that. Pros, cons, and then like inaction. Like, what are the consequences of the inaction? I think that's smart.
Right.
That's like your ROI or business case, right?
That, and we're all selling against why now? Because they all make sense. You know, every tool out there makes perfect sense. You can afford all of them, most of them, right, but you can't adopt them all. You can't implement them all. You can't leverage all of them. So you have a priority list. And that changes all the time. And whoever has the best case usually goes first.
Yeah, it's strong. Now, what if I'm working with the user? So you've got two options. Ask the user to get you introduced to the DM, or just go straight to the DM. What's your opinion or strategy there?
Well, you got to be careful not to get what I call going steady. Because once you admit going steady, then you're cheating when you go around them. You got to do it before you're going steady. Asking for the introduction is good if you think they'll do it. But usually they don't have much political power. And so what do? They email it to the boss and they say, subject line, good idea. The boss. And what does the boss do? If they might hit on the proposal and it doesn't say anything. It says 17 line items of greatidea.com at $275K. You go, I don't know what greatidea.com is. I think I'll wait on it. That's where deals die.
Yeah, and the going steady part. So what does that mean? Like, what, and how do you know if you're going steady or not with
Well,
the
do you
user?
know anybody else in the org? If you're playing the whole game, you're talking to all the players. Or you don't have to talk with them. They have to know who you are. They don't have to know why they know who you are. But if you were to start a conversation with them, it would not be a break in the chain of command. It would be a natural progression.
Yeah.
Because if somebody's buying $1 million of your stuff and one of your reps is talking to one person in sales, you think it's going to happen?
Probably not.
You think if they're talking to the VP of sales, it's going to happen?
Potentially. I think you got to probably talk to a lot of people.
Right. How about if you're talking to the CEO, a board member, some influencer on them, somebody that they trust and believe in?
Yeah, the funny part is if someone's coming to me for like a sales tech, they would have to come to me, and then I would have to get them to my VP of sales. We would both have to be aligned. I may have to pull in my VP of inside sales, my sales ops person. Like,
right.
Even if you get to the top relies on the middle and the bottom. There's so many people involved in the deal.
Right.
Not even perfectly. It's just like, dude, if we get this thing, how the hell do we make it work?
Right. And you might be under pressure, and you probably have somebody on your board that you think has more knowledge about this. And most likely their recommendation is, well, why don't you wait 90 days, push it out to next quarter, see what happens.
See, the smart thing is I've been able to build the company with no board.
That's good.
I don't know how long that's going to last. Eventually someone is your board, whether it's investors, public shareholders, like you're freaking reporting to someone, employees.
Of course you are. But doing that one-on-one is a whole lot better than doing that 5-on-1.
Oh yeah. I couldn't imagine trying to also sell the board. Oh my God. Like, I mean, my investors, they span the gamut, like
right.
VCs, top CEOs, IT people, salespeople, like it spans the board. If you asked any one of them, like, what do you think? Like the answers are going to be like spray and pray.
All over the place.
Darts thrown against the wall.
Yeah. And once it goes to the board, somebody on the board's going to say either wait or have you checked this out? Okay. I hear good things about dingdong.com. Yeah. Dingdong.com I think does the same thing. Or I invested in Mike.com. You should check Mike.com out. And then the sales process starts all over again.
Man. Yeah. Okay. So let's just pretend like we worked the user. They love it. We also I feel like the majority of the situations we're working the user one-on-one and we're working the DM one-on-one. What I feel like the majority of salespeople get stuck in, because I get stuck in them the most. I'm working the user. We know who the DM is. We need to get to the DM. We're trying to get the user to get us to the DM, and they're not doing it for whatever reason. What's the play there? You just go around them or what?
Well, you sell to the company, not to the user. The user is one part of the decision. They're one part of the team. What I always did when I was going in that first meeting, I would send connections to their manager, their VP, the CEO, every board member. I wouldn't say what I'm doing. I just say something of what I compliment, something that would show that I respect them, I notice them, and I think they've got their game together. So they all of a sudden know who I am. So I have plausible deniability when that person goes, let's keep it between us. And I go, well, I'm already connected to your manager, your CEO, your board member. And the company's buying it. You're a big part of it.
I love that line.
Yeah, you are a big part.
I'm already connected to them.
I'm already connected.
I'm already working that thing. Do you have any recommendations on how to work that connection? Yeah. That's genius.
Well, if you don't,
anyone's ever told me that piece of advice. Hey, I'm actually already connected to them. We're we're working it.
Because then you have the choice of either being pigeonholed or stonewalled by the end user or end running them and possibly pissing them off and their manager. And it probably has to go above their manager.
Yeah.
So it's selling, and that's why the deals tend to get into land and expand. Land and expand is mostly done because they can't get a real deal done.
Shit.
$50K a month. They can put on the corporate credit card.
Right. It makes me want to call my sales team and yell at them.
And
we're doing too many land and expand deals.
You can do that, but it takes another 9-12 months.
Yeah.
That could be condensed into 90 days.
Wow. I love that. Oh, we're already connected with them. You're an important piece of that puzzle.
And how would you find out who they report to? Maybe if there was a product out there that could tell you that.
Right. I mean, you got to be using.
There must be a market for that. What do you think?
That, right?
Yeah. You get the boys on that.
Yeah. By the way, it was funny when I was selling for IBM. I built that tool because I hated doing all the manual bullshit at IBM.
Don't get me started.
Brutal. Okay, so once I get the time now, let's just assume I work the user, boom, I'm working the DM, worlds collide. I've got my opportunity to pitch and close the deal with the DM and the buying committee. Let's just assume we're in the boardroom or just meeting room with all the DM, budget holder, influencers, and users. What's your best piece of advice there to get this thing done?
Well, you want to avoid that situation. I have this approach, what I call divide and concur. You want to talk to each of those people individually because people in a group don't tell the truth. They tell the lowest common denominator, which is do nothing, delay, buy as little as possible.
Wow.
All three of those you don't like. You could have bought the little as possible in the land and expand strategy.
Yeah.
And that's what all the VCs are recommending because they don't understand sales.
Right. Yep. Divide and concur. So you recommend building what does that mean?
That means talk to one person one-on-one. Okay. And that's where you get the closest to the truth. When you have 2-on-1, you always hear that we'll get back to you. Let us talk it over. Okay. No commitment to next step. Call us in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we need to think about it.
We've got to think about it. The one-on-one gives you some level of control over it. And they do want to talk about certain things, probably not the product. They might want to talk about the outcome, what other people are getting out of it, the problem it solves, the impact that it'll have, what happens if you don't have it. And everyone wants to talk about one thing, themselves and their career.
Yep.
Believe me.
Themselves and their career.
That's their favorite topic.
So how do you leverage that then, knowing that that's the sticky point? So
you start asking questions. Like how'd you end up here?
Got it.
And they will tell you how to sell them. And who cares about it? They'll start to open up. That'll never take place. If you do meet in that type of boardroom, that has to be a confirmation meeting, not a presentation meeting, not a consideration meeting. It has to be a decision meeting. And that's very rare. But I've been on that board and it's a train wreck because you described it because everyone's got different interests, backgrounds, motives, time constraints, personal wins, and they all feel obligated to contribute, which may not be positive. Because they don't see contribution as thumbs up. They see contribution as why reevaluate? Why not look at something else? I'm smarter than you, so you should check out this.
Shit. Yep.
And because I had a guest who had a 7-figure deal and Bill Gates was on the board. So guess what he said? You got to check out what Microsoft's doing. It's years ahead of this stuff.
Oh God.
Deal sideways.
Oh my God.
It wasn't that they didn't check out Microsoft. It was like, you can't.
So his prospect was literally working with Bill Gates. Just
No, they didn't even know. They weren't in the puzzle. But it goes to the board,
yeah.
and the CEO is presenting it not for approval, but for consensus. Because most of these CEOs can sign off on pretty much
anything.
What they, as long as the money's there.
Yep. Wow. Divide and concur. Get them talking about them, their career, their goals. And I guess ensure what your product is aligned with helping all of these individuals accomplish what their goals and dreams are.
They don't buy what the product does. They buy what the product does for them. And it's not the functionality, it's the side effects.
What do you mean?
Well, people don't buy a Porsche for acceleration. People buy a Porsche for how it makes them feel and their social status.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know what the acceleration is. I've never drag raced anybody in 30 years. But I sure like how it feels when I'm in it, right? And people
so I take it you
crane their
Porsche?
necks. No, I'm joking. I wish I had a Porsche. That's why I look at Porsches. I don't look at them because of, rack and pinion steering, whatever the hell that is. I don't know what that is.
That's awesome. So switching gears, because your content, I like to call content genius. I've been following you in the content game before podcasts and this shit was popular. Like I remember when I was 21 selling for IBM and you had all different, I think you were one of the first people on LinkedIn to do sales content.
Yeah, I was in high school at the time. Yeah.
Brian, what's your secret to what are the secrets to creating content, creating all these shows? Like you've recorded, how many shows have you shot, recorded, or micro content?
A lot. Yeah. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of videos, close to 1,000 podcast interviews. But if you use that same formula of do it, see what the feedback is, listen to it yourself. How can I do it better? Not like 10 times better, just a little bit better. Better eye contact, better pauses between questions, better connection with the guest. Read the comments, no matter how trolly they are. What was the misunderstanding? Yeah. How could I have used the title better to get people more focused on what I'm really saying versus the reaction to the words or my expression? And then mix comedy with a little bit of knowledge, a little nugget of looking at the problem a different way.
How'd you get over your did you have fear of creating content?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you go back, I still have them up from 11 years ago on YouTube. I was just physically holding the camera. And this is before image stabilization. And it's shaking. And it was unedited. I didn't put it into iMovie the way I do today. There was no subtitles. They were atrocious. And I watched them and I go, they're atrocious.
That's so awesome.
But I left them up and I'd read the comments and stuff. And, then I stopped doing them, but then the technology caught up. iPhones now have image stabilization. I learned how to use iMovie. I learned how to chop it up, make it nice and quick without it being gimmicky.
Oh yeah. Do you see that nice and quick? So does that mean shorter videos perform better than longer videos?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because if you see the people who put the 5-minute ones out there, it's just arduous. It's like, well, thanks for watching my video. I'm Schminky Schmangy from Wingy Wangy Company. And what we do, and we were founded in 1992. Nobody cares, right? Yeah. It's like, get to the point. Well, how is your perspective different? Why should people look at it a different way? And try and do it with a little bit of humor, sarcasm, and point fun at the point that you're trying to diminish or change.
Yeah, because a lot of your most popular videos, I'm looking at the channel now for those tuning in on the podcast or the show. Like some of your top ones are a minute long.
Yeah, a minute to a minute and a half seems to be the sweet point.
Yeah, minute and a half. That's amazing, huh? And you just do it. Just start doing it. Start learning. Start studying game film, like you talked about that you and your boss would do on the sales deals over dinner, and just keep trying to improve every day.
And it's about the audience. It's not about you. Don't try and sell anything. You can sell your idea, but not your product. Because if they dig it, they'll figure it out.
Right.
They'll find your podcast. They'll find your product. Nobody wants to hear a pitch.
Well, especially because all these platforms are for really entertainment anyways.
It's all I mean, if it's not entertaining, it better be a whole lot of education.
Yeah.
But if you can mix the two,
then that's where the money's at.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other secrets you've learned along the way? You've been doing this for 8 to 10 years for content creation, building an audience. Brian's got millions of YouTube views, probably hundreds of thousands of podcast downloads. There's got to be some gems you've learned. What are some of the secrets that you've learned from the past decade?
I think it's a performance. It's a long game. It's not a short game. I mean, we hear about, people on TikTok getting millions of views. That's the exception, not the rule. And if you're in it for the short term, you're going to be very disappointed. If you kind of stick through it and learn along the way, it's worth it, but you have to put your face out there. You have to stick your neck out. But that's selling, isn't it?
Yeah. Taking your shot, going for the pitch. Huh. Very awesome. Brian Burns, where can the audience connect with you, follow you, learn from you for more?
Yeah, I'm all over the place. LinkedIn is where I post most of my stuff. Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn, YouTube, a bunch of podcasts, depending on your interest. But follow me there. I've kind of run out of connections, but that's where I spend most of my time.
That's awesome. Well, Brian, hey, thank you so much for sharing your sales secrets today. Audience, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Sales Secrets, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Wherever you're listening on, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, follow on LinkedIn, iTunes, podcast, Spotify, all of this content. We drop new videos daily, so you want to subscribe and then turn on those notifications so you get alerted of new episodes. You're just one secret away from changing your life forever for the better. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk soon. Thank you, Brian, for showing up today. Appreciate you.
Great to be here.
Thank you for listening to Sales Secrets with Brandon Bornancin. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss an episode that drops on the daily. Your success is our success.